another Bitcoin update video, and I'm adding Telcoin to this as well as Sol. So those three coins are what we're going to rely on today. Of course, we're going to start off with Bitcoin, and I just want to go through what I'm seeing here. I might have did already make this video once, but we're going to do it again because I was just waiting for things to play out. But like I said in my first video that I made, I think right now we are micro bullish. I see, and this is on the daily, I see where right now the stock RSI, and if I could use my marker here, I'm going to go down and see where this is at the 90 level, anywhere between 90, 100 is bullish. I can see where this could come up one more time even, or kind of just stagnate a little bit and then turn over, and that's what it looks like it wants to do to me. Right now I see, as far as the chart goes, obviously an inverse head and shoulders. It's the breakout of the falling wedge that we've been talking about for months. But what I'm looking at right now is the reason why I've been pointing out a lot of these retests on that 20-day EMA or moving average. I'm sorry, short-term moving average, which you see right here in the middle of this Bollinger Band, that purple line going all the way across. And if I'm going to draw on this and show you what this continuation would do, it's starting to curve up, so it's going to end up looking something like that. Well, you see this bottom Bollinger Band start to move up with this, kind of constrict a little bit. Now, the reason why this right here was so important as far as that retest is because usually, typically, once it goes off the bottom of a Bollinger Band, it ends up at some point touching the top of that Bollinger Band, especially if it finds support. And this is on the daily. As you know, I always look at the daily. We're going to go into the 4-hour, and there's a reason for that. But right now on the daily, what I see is that inverse head and shoulders that might play out in the micro move, and I believe it's going to come up and touch this 90 to 92,000 level. I think this is going to be the big retest that's going to sucker a lot of people in. I do see the stock RSI, I think, has a little bit more push to it on the daily, and I also see this bounce off of this 20-day moving average. I think that this could start to come up this way to try to make it touch on the top of that upper Bollinger Band. It wouldn't come up here for no reason. It would obviously come all the way up here to retest what was support at one point. And right now, you see these three circles, and those were points where it was solid support. But right now, with three circles touching on the same touch points, that means that this trend line here at the $92,000 mark is heavy, and it's going to be really hard for this to push up and break that, especially with a low stock RSI the way it is. So I think there's enough juice there just to get a bounce that will push up to the upper Bollinger Band, and it might extend to the $92,000 level mark. But in my opinion, this is on the daily, I really think at that point, this would keel over. I don't think there's enough momentum here to break that heavy point at that point. And I think you'll start to see a reject here. I actually, and I'm not trying to stick to my bias, but I actually still think we're going to see 73,000 at one point. But that's on the daily. The reason why I'm bullish and why I think that inverse head and shoulders is going to play out, if you go to the 4-hour, it's the same situation here. If you look, this broke through on that 20-day moving average, and it is using that as support right now, and I expect a bounce. This is bouncing actually right now, and it's going to start to try to push up against that upper Bollinger. But I also, if I can pull out, like I said, I see that inverse head and shoulders, and there's definitely enough momentum on this stock RSI that's trying to get up here to the 100, if you can see my mouse at the bottom of the screen, to that 100 mark. I think there's enough juice in that to actually push this up to that 90, 92,000 mark, where it's going to, like I said, retest to see if support has flipped to resistance. I think at that point, if I can pull out a little bit, and I'm going to go back to the daily, but at the 4-hour, that's why I think it's micro bullish. On the daily, I still think it's not a sucker's rally, but I this might be a good point to take profits, and a lot of people know that this is heavy here. I think a lot of people are going to take profits on this retest, and I really think that this needs to get shaken out at some point down around 73, 74, and use that purple line as a support. And then I think it's off to the races again. At some point, it's going to try to touch this upper trend line. If this purple bottom base diagonal support broke, we would have a different conversation, but I don't think that's what's happened. We're not even close to that point yet. Right now, that's just where I think I still am holding on. I guess that 73,000, but I still think it's going to get up to this 90,000 mark. This is on Bitcoin. The reason why this is pertinent is because the two other altcoins that I'm going to show you, I think, are doing the same thing. And if you saw the Jesus move this morning or yesterday, that did already what I think that this is going to do. So I'm going to actually remove this just so we can get back to what this chart really is, where it's at. The support thesis on top of that 20-day moving average in the Bollinger Band and having this push up to the upper Bollinger Band at least. I think that right there is going to be a bounce. I also think this is still broken out of that falling wedge, and this might have a little bit of follow-through bullishness. And those are reasons why I think we're micro bullish. But I still think macro, this is pretty heavy. This is a lot of touch points as far as support goes. That's going to be really heavy for Biddy just to break through this thing. Anybody thinking that it could do it? Yeah, it's Bitcoin. It could do anything, but then you would be looking for that retest, right? But until that happens, most people that they have sell marks already up at that point to try to get it to keel over. And buy cheaper. And then, of course, I think we're macro bullish. So that's that. Let me get over to Tel, another coin that's very talked about. If you're on X, it's one of the most live communities that there is out there. So I did make a Tel video yesterday. I'm going to erase some of the stuff because it was off of that video. Maybe we can talk about it really quick right now. Again, not trying to get any haters. Much love to the Tel community. I did tell you at this circle right here that this was probably a good time to take some profits, and some people absolutely destroyed me in my DMs for that, but that is what it is. It was a good time to take profits, but alas, here we are. As you can see, now that I just did the Bitcoin TA, you can kind of see where that inverse head and shoulders might be a miniature play here, but you're really looking for the retest because it broke down out of this diagonal support. You're really looking for this to come up at some point to retest around the 0.006 area. The thing is Tel right now is caught in the trenches, and it's underneath that 20-day moving average that we always talk about. So that 20-day moving average is going to kind of extend this way and try to squeeze the candle action where it is. Let me get this out of the way. Try to kind of squeeze the candle action of where it is, and it's really going to try to push this down, unfortunately. But we're going to have to see if this holds where it's at. I would expect a movement much like what we were just talking about with Bitcoin. I would expect a movement that would just kind of pop, work its way up, and then that inverse head and shoulders playing out so it can retest the diagonal, which I'm going to pull out right now, which was support that did fail, and it did break down out of it. I would say at some point it's got to go back and retest that, but right now I don't know if it's going to get the option to because it's getting squeezed so much on the daily. So let me just go down and see the 4-hour. I really haven't taken a look at this much prior to this video, but we'll kind of check it out together and see what we're thinking about Tel. Tel overall, I really think is banger. I think why wouldn't you? It's licensed. It's got a ton of good use case for it, and it is the first crypto bank in the United States, which, I mean, is pretty cool, right? But in that, we have to show maturity and kind of figure out where this goes. Okay, so the 4-hour, that inverse head and shoulders still is in play. So let me put that on here. Okay, so we're going to look at that inverse head and shoulders. If you're going to look at patterns, oh, that was horrible. Sorry. So if we're looking at patterns, let me get that out of there and try to redo that. That inverse head and shoulders is definitely still in play. So if we're looking at trendline analysis, which you're always trying to do 2 or 3 indicators at the same time on the trend lines, this is finding support where it's at, but it's really getting squeezed. It's got to move. It's got to start bouncing like right now. From the Bollinger Band analysis, and this is on the 4 hour on the micro, and I'm going to go out to the macro more than anything after this. This is underneath that 20-day moving average. This is getting squeezed, and there's a lot of reason why the right shoulder on this inverse head and shoulder could just fail right now, unfortunately. I mean, there's a chance that this is just going to get squeezed down there, squeezed, and just working underneath that 20-day moving average, and that might start to try to keel over. If you see this happen, if TEL breaks 0.0044, then you know that this is probably coming back down to retest on the 0.003635 level, and at that point I would expect that would be considered a double bottom and it'll work its way back up. I'm gonna leave that painting just for a second, just because you can see why that would be what it is, but that's again that would be kind of a bullish a bearish to bullish scenario. But if you look down at the stock RSI, once it gets to the 4 hour at least, it actually has room to grow, but you're really looking for it to get over that 50 level. So I'm going to get down here to that stock RSI. I'm going to throw down a trend line at that 50 level. Of course, anything over 50 is considered pretty bullish. Anything under 50 is still considered bearish. So you're looking for that yellow line to break. If this yellow line on the stock RSI on the 4 hour breaks, this has definitely got enough oomph to push through and follow through on this inverse head and shoulders. But I'm going to use a brush. If this comes up here and starts to reject off that 50 on the stock RSI, you know that this is going to start to reject off of that 20-day moving average and move down. The stock RSI really is the way to see what is going to happen. It's kind of a great indicator. And like I said, as far as trend line analysis and Bollinger Bands, they go almost hand in hand, especially when you see where it bounces and where it can go, the resistance and support, whatnot. But overall, let me go back to the daily, because I still want to go through what I think is going to happen with TEL. There's going to be a point where everything here has its time to shine, right? It just is what it is. It's just retesting, if you really look at it, what was sorry about that. Computers running slow. What was prior resistance, and it's just retesting it to see if it's support. I think there's rounding here in general, but I think TEL in this area is a good buy where it's at. I don't think you're going to go wrong dollar cost averaging anywhere in kind of that circle right there. And that's typically what you're seeing in the past with TEL. It just has these little waves, right? Now the wave's down, and it's going to slowly make another wave up. Now, at some point, I'm not going to go moon boy again, but at some point, I really think that TEL could. I'm going to circle right up to the top, and you'll see why. At least the 0.025 mark within the next couple months. By July, that's where I would probably expect it, unless some craziness came out and it just fell off a cliff. But it's not. I think it's just going to have its way. It's got to find its tests, it retests and breaks and retests, just like every other coin out there. And I think right now, if you're really going to look at this, how I would say, even if this came back down, double bottom, and started making its way back up, I think this is very, very viable. But we are at a point right now where we can totally see what we think is going to happen and what might happen. So right now, I think that TEL could make a push up. The high where I would start taking profits would probably be around 0.006. If that broke, I would definitely be buying more, because it would be back into the megaphone pattern. But this could also go back down and retest the 0.003, but you're going to know very soon. Again, I'm going to go back to the 4 hour on TEL just to reiterate why you're going to know soon what this is going to do. And one of the reasons is the stock RSI that we went through at the bottom, and the other is this 20-day moving average. If I'm going to zoom in on it, if TEL starts to, because this 20-day moving average is going this way, if TEL starts to break this and retest, that's when I really think it's going to hunt for this upper Bollinger Band, and it might extend. Right? So you're looking for, really, I would say, a break of the 0.005, and you could definitely say you're going to micro bullish move this, and that's where you would have your eyes on TEL. So I think TEL actually is looking good, but you're going to know within the next, probably today or tomorrow, if this gets squeezed down by that 20-day moving average and breaks down through what is support right now at like 0.0044, somewhere around there, or you're going to see if that breaks through, and if it retests around 0.006, that's where you know that there's enough momentum. Like I said on the stock RSI, if this can push above the 50 point, this could actually really set and tell. So that's what you're looking for. Possible inverse head and shoulders. Invalidation would be if this neckline broke at the 0.0044 mark and kept coming down. You would know that inverse head and shoulders invalidated. I'm gonna just go back up to Sol really quick, and the reason why is because Sol kind of has the same thing going on. And this is just a simple chart, and the only reason why I want to show this is because a lot of alts are showing the same chart. You're going to see where there's the inverse head and shoulders that we're talking about with Tel, and you can see where this is the horizontal, obviously, was support, and this has to come back up and retest it at some point. It did, it rejected, but there's nothing to tell me that this isn't going to go back up to try to at least retest that breakthrough mark. Now, Sol also is above the 20-day moving average it's bouncing off of, and there's a chance that this is just going to straight continue. So that's just what I'd be looking at with Sol, if that's something that you're interested in or whatnot. So let me get back to Bitcoin just to reiterate, go back through it, what we were looking at. And again, it's what I just showed you with the other two coins. I think we are micro bullish, and I think there's a really good chance that we're going to push up to resistance levels, and then I think we're going to kill over. So I think it's at least going to get to 91,000. That might be the trade. That might be where I take profit. Now, if that breaks and it gets above that, we'll have a different conversation. But until then, I guess it's weird, but my $73,000 thesis is kind of still in play. And it could be ugly, but it is what it is. I still think we're bullish in the end. So just do your best, do your diligence, dollar cost average. And now that I showed you kind of what to look for, I hope you utilize it. I hope you realize how to use those Bollinger Bands, trendline analysis, and put them all together and make your own thesis, right? And then I would love for somebody to challenge this thesis and, DM and give a good reason why it might be wrong. But I think that I'm pretty correct. I've been pretty close up here, not to reiterate, but around 105,000. I said we're going to 73. We got to like 74,000. That was a good call. If that didn't automatically go to 73, whatever, I'm still cool with that call. But unfortunately, I still think we're going to 73 at one point. All right, guys, much love. If you need anything, just let me know. Feel free to DM me and write good stuff. That's always good to see is good stuff, right? All right, guys, positive vibes if you need anything.